Jamieson Greer joins me now from Davos. Representative Greer, great to have you with us. Thank you very much for being here. Give us a sense of the ground that has been traveled today. The president saying earlier today that military action is not the path that he wants to take to gain ownership and control of Greenland. Now it sounds like he's not even thinking about tariffs. So can you give us any sense of what is the transaction that is in the works?
Well, I've been on the ground here for about 36 hours. And Greenland, of course, has been quite the discussion topic. There's been questions about the military elements, economic elements, and that kind of thing. I've met with my counterparts from the EU, from Britain, with the German officials, and everyone is looking for a good way forward. The president himself was very clear today that he wanted to have negotiations. He signaled it to the world. We were all there. I was not in the most recent discussions with Mark Rutte. That's clearly the right person to be talking to, given his role in NATO. And so we're having very constructive conversations at many levels with many countries that are involved in this.
So let me play what the narrative was going into today. There was a lot of alarm. There were even troops mobilized to protect Greenland by our other NATO allies. Astonishing in many ways. But here's the kind of language that we heard pre-speech from President Trump. Watch.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition.
It's clear that we are reaching a time of instability, of imbalances.
Now, so many red lines are being crossed that you have the choice between your self-respect. Being a happy vassal is one thing, being a miserable slave is something else.
It is time to seize this opportunity and build a new independent Europe.
So there was all of this discussion that this was going to break NATO, this discussion about Greenland and the president's aggressiveness on this issue, and that, you know, these countries were going to form alliances with China or potentially Russia instead of the United States. Were they way out over their skis with that narrative, Jamieson?
Yeah, I don't think any of that was realistic. I don't want to be dismissive of some of the emotion that was felt by, some of the folks here in Europe. But the reality is we are entering into a new world order. And that's something that a lot of the European officials have been acknowledging during the past couple of days here at Davos. We're entering into a period where some of the economic rules of the past are no longer effective, where some of the security arrangements may need to be rearranged. And so there's an acknowledgement with that. The idea that somehow these folks would partner with China, that's not realistic. China is a giant exporter. They're not a big importer, and so they're not going to import a lot of the things that they sell. China supports Russia economically, and Russia, of course, is fighting a war on Europe's borders. So none of that is very realistic. When I was meeting with my counterparts over the past couple of days, I encouraged them to speak with the president, put it at the leaders level, and negotiate, and that's indeed where we are now.
I want to play one more soundbite from President Trump, and then I have a quick question for you on the other side of that. This is the president talking about how much we give NATO, and in his words, how little we get back from the organization. Watch.
This would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance. The United States is treated very unfairly by NATO. I want to tell you that. And when you think about it, nobody can dispute it. We give so much and we get so little in return.
So he made this point several times, Jamieson, that we give so much to NATO and we get so little in return. And he said, this is the one thing that we want. We want to have control over Greenland. So was it the threat, and we're still waiting to see what this framework is, obviously, but was it the threat of sanctions that was the tipping point towards where we are now with some sort of framework?
Well, it certainly focused minds. So I would say, yes, that's the case. And I just want to make one more point. People tend to forget history. When you look back to World War II, and we contributed to the war effort. We lent money to Britain. We had this Lend-Lease program, and people talk about it now like it was free money. Britain had to pay that money back for decades. So whenever you're facing real security concerns or people want security guarantees, it's never been free. There have always been trade-offs, and periodically you review those relationships, you review the cost and balance, you review who's bearing the burdens, and you reassess that. So this kind of conversation, I think, is long overdue. Greenland's part of it. The NATO 5% commitment is another part of it. Our trade relations are part of it. We're in the middle of making sure that our trade relations, our security relations are in the interest of the United States of America.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see how the threat of tariffs has become a national security tool and lever in a number of situations, and it clearly reflects President Trump's doctrine as he looks at the way to solve conflicts in the world and have a United States advantage. And he now says the whole Arctic region is part of this framework. So we'll see what that means as we get more details. Jamieson Greer, U.S. Trade Representative, an important part of all these discussions. Thank you very much for being here. Great to see you.
Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.